It's a big week for Star Trek. We have casting news for Starfleet Academy, a possible direction for the future of Star Trek films at Paramount, and on top of all of that, we also have a series finale airing this week. All that and more on This Week in Trek. Hey Star Trek fans, I'm Dan Gunther, and welcome to This Week in Trek, your weekly rundown of all the news from the past week and the new releases in the coming week in the Star Trek universe. Let's jump right into this week's top stories.
Then I'll make sure it goes better than well.
I know you will, which is why I have a journalist from FNN en route to the Cerritos. She'll be documenting your success as it happens.
Leading the news this week is our first bit of casting news for Starfleet Academy. Early last week, we learned that Academy Award-winning actor Holly Hunter is taking up the mantle of, quote, Captain and Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. Hunter's career began in the 1980s, gaining a number of Oscar nominations along the way until her win in 1994 for her role as the lead character in the film The Piano. She also has a very impressive television career with multiple nominations for Emmy Awards and 2 wins. Starfleet Academy co-showrunners Alex Kurtzman and Noga Landau put out a statement with some high praise for Holly Hunter. It feels like we've spent our entire lives watching Holly Hunter be a stone-cold genius. To have her extraordinary authenticity, fearlessness, sense of humor, and across-the-board brilliance leading the charge on Starfleet Academy is a gift to all of us, and to the enduring legacy of Star Trek. The announcement of Hunter's casting in Starfleet Academy also included a synopsis for the series. The series will follow the adventures of a new class of Starfleet cadets as they come of age in one of the most legendary places in the galaxy. Star Trek Starfleet Academy introduces viewers to a young group of cadets who come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism. Under the watchful and demanding eyes of their instructors, they discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blossoming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both the Academy and the Federation itself. I, for one, am very excited to have the supremely talented Holly Hunter joining the project. I hope all Star Trek fans out there will join me in welcoming her to our extensive Star Trek family. Longtime subscribers to Kertrats Productions and listeners of the Positively Trek podcast will know that I am pretty skeptical when it comes to Star Trek movie news. However, I do have to report on some interesting developments over at Paramount that may chart the course for Star Trek films going forward. On May 21st, the same day that we got the news about Holly Hunter joining Starfleet Academy, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed a report that Paramount is tapping Simon Kinberg to produce the next Star Trek theatrical film, and also looking for him to be the shepherd of the entire Trek film franchise going forward. Kinberg is no stranger to genre films, having produced many films in the X-Men franchise, beginning in 2006 with X-Men: The Last Stand. He also produced the first 2 Deadpool films and the 2015 adaptation of The Martian. He has also held the role of executive producer on several television shows, including The Gifted, Legion, Star Wars Rebels, and the Paramount Plus Twilight Zone reboot. The next Star Trek theatrical film, as we have previously reported, is supposed to be the as-yet untitled Star Trek origin story, written by Seth Grahame-Smith and directed by Toby Haynes, currently scheduled for release in the next couple of years. The Hollywood Reporter references this film with the following blurb. The project is said to be set decades before the events of the 2009 movie that was directed by J.J. Abrams, likely around modern times. It is said to involve the creation of the Starfleet and humankind's first contact with alien life. Now, there are a lot of problems with that description, and online Star Trek fans were quick to express opinions ranging from outrage to disbelief. The creation of Starfleet and humankind's first contact with alien life hardly suggests modern times, and of course humanity's first contact with the Vulcans was already covered in the film Star Trek First Contact. Now, interestingly, coverage of this story over on Variety has this to say about the film. Insiders say the film is intended as an origin story for the main timeline of the Star Trek franchise, rather than the alternate Kelvin timeline started with 2009 Star Trek, set in the aftermath of humanity's first contact with aliens. This description feels to me like it makes more sense. Star Trek First Contact culminated in humanity's first direct contact with alien life, and if this description from Variety is accurate, I could see it taking place between the end of the 21st century portion of First Contact in 2063 and the beginning of Enterprise set in 2151. This would indeed make more sense if we're talking about the creation of Starfleet. Following that film, Paramount is still reportedly working on the next Kelvin timeline film starring Chris Pine as James T. Kirk. However, it has now been nearly 8 years since the release of Star Trek Beyond, and it feels like we really aren't anywhere close to seeing that cast reunited anytime soon. Regardless, it's still up in the air if either of these films even get made, given the track record of Paramount in producing Star Trek films over the past few years. We'll keep our ears to the ground for more news about the future of Star Trek films at Paramount, but that landscape still looks pretty grim from where I'm sitting. Over the last 2 weeks, we've reported on Star Trek Discovery's ranking on the Nielsen Top 10 streaming shows for the beginning of the 5th and final season. The first full week of the season saw Discovery appearing on the list for the first time in 10th place. Week 2 saw the show move up 1 spot to 9th. Well, we can almost call that a trend this week, as once again Discovery is on the top 10 list and has moved up another spot. Numbers for the week of April 22nd to 28th have just come out, and Discovery once again climbs the list to finish in 8th place. This week covers the first full week after the release of Face the Strange, episode 4 of season 5, and the first few days after the release of episode 5, Mirrors. Once again, this is great news for Paramount and Star Trek Discovery. I am thrilled that this final season continues to put in a strong showing as far as the viewership goes. We'll continue to track these numbers as the weeks go by, counting down to the final episode of Star Trek Discovery. Marvel Studios have just announced a new television series set within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starring Paul Bettany reprising his role as Vision, set to air in 2026. Why are we reporting this in a Star Trek news video? Well, the showrunner of the new series is none other than Terry Matalas, showrunner of the final 2 seasons of Star Trek Picard. Many fans have been calling for Paramount to greenlight a new Star Trek series that takes place after the end of Picard's Season 3, a potential project that Matalas himself has expressed interest in doing. Popularly known as Star Trek Legacy, the proposed series would continue the adventures of the U.S.S. Enterprise G, as seen in the final episode of Picard, and likely involve plotlines featuring Legacy characters returning, much like we saw in Picard's final season. Well, it seems that Matalas isn't waiting around for this series that may or may not happen, and quite frankly, who could blame him? This Vision series sounds like an amazing opportunity for this very talented storyteller, and Paramount's loss is Marvel and Disney's gain. Congrats to Terry for landing this gig, and we wish him all the best in his new endeavor.
There's a fortune to be made. Little hollow creatures running around. Rides and games for the kiddies. Ferengis standing in every doorway, selling useless souvenirs.
This is a huge week for Star Trek. It isn't every day that the series that ushered in the current so-called golden age of Star Trek comes to an end. This week, on Thursday, May 30th, Star Trek Discovery ends its 5-season run. The final episode of the series, entitled Life Itself, is the culmination of the series that began the latest era of Star Trek when the premiere episodes The Vulcan Hello and Battle at the Binary Stars first aired on September 24th, 2017. Here's the synopsis of the finale from Paramount. Trapped inside a mysterious alien portal that defies familiar rules of time, space, and gravity, Captain Burnham must fight Moll and the environment itself in order to locate the Progenitors' technology and secure it for the Federation. Meanwhile, Book puts himself in harm's way to help Burnham survive, and Rayner leads the U.S.S. Discovery in an epic winner-takes-all battle against Breen forces. Life Itself is written by Kyle Jarrow and Michelle Paradise and directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. We will of course have coverage of the finale here on Kertrats Productions later in the week after the episode drops. The series finale of Discovery isn't the only Star Trek thing to keep an eye out for this week. On Tuesday, May 28th, a special home video release of Star Trek III: The Search for Spock goes on sale. Celebrating the 40th anniversary of the third Star Trek feature film, this limited edition Steelbook release features both 4K UHD and Blu-ray editions of The Search for Spock. There are, of course, links in the description if you would like to add this special release to your Star Trek film library. Wednesday, May 29th, sees the release of the latest Star Trek comic from IDW, and it's a special one. Star Trek Celebrations, a showcase of Star Trek's top LGBTQ+ representation, comes out on Wednesday in celebration of Pride Month. This one-shot anthology features queer heroes from each era of Star Trek from a number of terrific comic writers. Here's the synopsis from IDW. Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but to celebrate differences in ideas and differences in life forms. IDW proudly presents a one-shot anthology centering and celebrating LGBTQIA+ characters from across the Star Trek universe. Join legendary heroes from each era of the beloved franchise in stories that showcase the strengths of infinite diversity in infinite combinations, brought to you by a star-studded cast of writers and artists including Vita Ayala, Steve Orlando, Megs Visaggio, and more. Definitely looking forward to this one. As always, I have links in the description to get the digital version of the comic from Amazon. And finally, on Thursday, May 30th, a special offering from Vice Press goes on sale to celebrate The Search for Spock's 40th anniversary. A remastered edition of the original Star Trek III: The Search for Spock theatrical poster. The posters measure 24 by 36 inches and are only available for a limited time, with sales open from May 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time through to June 6th. There's also a short-run reflective foil variant with only 175 prints available. Make sure to get yours quickly. I'll have a link in the description below where you can find yours. And that's a wrap on a very full week in Trek. Thanks to the Patreon supporters for all of your help with the show, and thank you especially to you, the viewers, for tuning in each week. It is very much appreciated. As much as I hate to see Discovery come to an end, I am absolutely looking forward to celebrating that show and its legacy this week with my fellow Star Trek fans as the groundbreaking series draws to a close. Thanks again for joining me this week, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and live long and prosper.